Hey guys, it's Thor, and we are going to be talking about the lunar eclipse that's coming up on November 19th. And I see a lot of astrologers on YouTube and all over TikTok and other social media. They are talking about this eclipse in many ways because it's a very intense eclipse, and we really don't even have to look that far to actually already see what's happening with this eclipse. It's been said that with eclipse energies, it can affect you a month before the eclipse and or 3 to 6 months after the eclipse energies are being felt. And of course, the eclipse energies, it's a big deal because especially with the lunar eclipse happening, it's Rahu overshadowing the moon. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in our presentation. One of the effects that I already see happening with this eclipse is we're seeing inflation raise its ugly head, and everybody's seeing that. If you go to the grocery store, if you're buying anything, the prices of everything are increasing dramatically because the eclipse is happening in the sign of Taurus, the natural second house. So we're seeing escalation with the prices of commodities and so forth. And we're going to talk about that a little more in my presentation that I have for you guys. In the presentation, I'm going to take you a little bit through what an eclipse is, how it affects us, but also we're going to talk about, things we can do to mitigate the effects of eclipse. There's a lot of new age philosophers and teachers out there that say eclipses are a really good time to set forth your intentions for manifestation and so forth. But in the ancient world, eclipses were actually seen as negative and unlucky events. A lot of times people would hide away when there was an eclipse. So I wouldn't necessarily say an eclipse is a good thing. We'll talk about why when I show you guys the presentation I am doing. So I hope you guys have plans for a wonderful Thanksgiving coming up this month, especially my American viewers. I don't know if there's Thanksgiving is celebrated on the same day around the world, but it's a very beautiful holiday. So let's go right into this presentation I got for you guys. Now, the first thing I want you guys to know is I've had a few readings recently. I've had a couple readings where people they forget that what I practice is sidereal Vedic astrology. So I want to put that out there, guys. I use the sidereal Vedic zodiac, not the Western tropical zodiac. And your sign could be different using Vedic astrology, just so you know. And I have a question in the live stream. Someone says, my friend is going to a Phil Collins concert on Friday. What should I tell her? Well, generally I wouldn't think anything very bad is going to happen. But it would be just to keep your guard up. Take a look for anything. They're inauspicious going to large events during eclipses. But normally it's not going to be something to be too worried about. But I would say be a little bit cautious about what you're doing. So let's continue on, guys. And like I said, guys, in Western astrology, my sign's Cancer, but in sidereal Vedic astrology, which is what we're looking at, I'm a Leo, and that's my ascendant sign or rising sign. So let's take a look at the next chart here. Basically, guys, please like and subscribe if you guys like my content. My goal is 10,000 subscribers now. And if you guys are interested in your own reading, please check for details below. It will be in the section below this video. And also, just so you guys know, for the month of November, all the readings and services on my website are 20% off using code Thor. And that's all the way till November 30th. So you guys check that out while the time lasts, okay? And I'm very reasonable. Now, guys, let's talk about the world situation, because if you guys haven't noticed, the world is going pretty crazy recently. So let's take a look at that. I'm clicking around here. Okay, so the world situation, obviously you guys are aware of the supply shortages. We talked about that in some of my previous videos. And the inflation, we were told the inflation was going to be transitory, and it looks like it's not transitory, guys. So I don't know if we're being gaslit or something from these people, but inflation is not transitory. This is going to be the most expensive Thanksgiving on report. The prices of commodities are increasing rapidly with inflation. And we're seeing Wall Street versus Main Street divide. There's two different economies that appear to be operating. According to Reuters, guys, and I read this today, Goldman Sachs CEO said greed outpacing fear in world markets. This is really an important thing to bring up. You know, people have been talking about this for the last couple years, actually, even since 2008, that increasingly we're seeing a disparity between what's happening on the stock market in Wall Street and what's happening on the ground with, everyday people. We know that there's this great resignation going on. We know that there's a labor shortage. And we know that the inflation is, it's outpacing the wages. So why would the stock market be booming? So that's where we see there's a giant disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street, as the politicians like to talk about. Let's take a look at the next slide. Okay, guys, so the fun we're going to have, interlunar eclipse November 19th. That's what everyone's talking about. And just so you guys are clear, lunar eclipse will take place in Taurus, specifically Kritika Nakshatra, and I made a video on that earlier. If you guys look on my most recent videos, I talk about Rahu transiting through Kritika. And let me take a look at, I'm looking at some of the questions in the chart, in the chat, I mean. Okay, so just so you guys know what an eclipse is, Rahu will eclipse the moon. That's usually what you guys see when you see a lunar eclipse, you see a shadow cross over the moon, and that's what in ancient times we refer to as Rahu is basically eclipsing the moon. So Rahu is stopping that light of consciousness which is coming from the moon. So that's why eclipses are so potent when they're affecting us. Important to understand, guys, that the moon, Chandra in Sanskrit, represents the feeling mind. We would like for the mind to be clear when we make decisions. Rahu is the oily and smoky agent that obscures, it distracts, it finds loopholes, confuses, and generally causes trouble. That's why, I titled this whole presentation really about the asset bubble really blinking red right now, because Rahu, it causes confusion over asset prices. I don't think the asset prices are accurate at all. So, and we had the Goldman Sachs CEO said that greed is outpacing fear. There's a lot of billionaires that are leaving the market right now, but people think that, the gravy train is not going to end. With Rahu, guys, you got to be very, very careful. Rahu is like a slippery slope, okay? Rahu will get you to invest a bunch of money, and then Rahu will pull the rug out from underneath you. So be careful. Rahu is known as the trickster. Every culture on earth has a trickster god or deity, okay? Let's go to the next slide here. So I wanted to go back on what I was telling you guys earlier is New Age beliefs on eclipses. And a lot of New Age people kind of fall into this. Some New Age teachings emphasize that eclipses are good times to manifest or set goals. This is not true anciently. Eclipses have been always considered inauspicious times to make important decisions. Why is it unlucky? There's a reason. Because Rahu is overshadowing the mind. This causes confusion and stops the light of consciousness. So I know it's really cool and trendy to say, oh, this is a great time to set your intentions, but not necessarily. This is a time to lay low if you can. But, if you have important events, I wouldn't stop the important events. But if you have control over your life, it's lay low. Your mind, Rahu is not going to be affecting our consciousness in a nice way. You might notice more arguments. You might notice more problems. You might notice more confusing, even driving on the roads. You might just notice a general level of confusion because Rahu's overshadowing the light of consciousness. Let's talk about the eclipse in Taurus, but after we talk about the eclipse in Taurus, we'll talk about specifically what the eclipse is doing in the nakshatra of Kritika. And you guys, in Vedic astrology, we have 27 star constellations. Just like there's 12 signs, within those 12 signs, there's 27 star constellations called nakshatras. So that's why it's also not only important to look at the sign, but the nakshatra, because then that gives us a little bit more specific information about what's going to happen with the eclipse. So eclipse in Taurus, the mind is being obscured by Rahu about the true value of things. That's why I think the stock market is going to be very overvalued right now. And a Taurus, guys, remember, it's the natural second house of assets in astrology, okay? Expect markets to grossly exaggerate the prices of assets. As the Goldman Sachs CEO said, greed is taking control. And greed, guys, remember, that's anti-dharmic. Rahu throws up the smokescreen because of selfish desire. Typical Rahu behaviors, quick elevation followed by sudden collapse and downfall. So whenever you guys see, a story of, say, like a famous person, an actor, a politician, a celebrity, and you hear about this meteoric rise, and then there's this downfall that happens because of various scandals that happen, you can usually count on that Rahu is involved. So Rahu will get you places. Rahu will take you to heights, you'd never known. But then Rahu will also bring about your downfall, where the downfalls can be very bad. They could stain your character for the rest of your life, some of these downfalls that are caused by Rahu. So be careful during this time. Obviously, get good sound financial advice from a financial planner, but I would be very cautious around this time. And we're going to talk about, because the eclipse not only affects Taurus, the natural second house, but it's affecting the 8th house, the natural 8th house of Scorpio. Remember, these eclipses happen on an axis. There's an eclipse axis. Wherever Rahu is, there's going to be Ketu on the other side. And let's take a look at the next thing, guys. Let's take a look at the next slide here. So there's an eclipse axis. Whenever there's an eclipse, guys, there's a Rahu-Ketu axis that the eclipse happens on. Lunar eclipse occurs in Taurus, natural second house. This is assets and values. Also, guys, if we're looking at your personal birth chart, second house is going to represent your family of origin, your values, your assets, how you save money. It also represents things like your teeth, your face, your hair. So there's a lot of meaning tied up in each of the 12 houses, okay? And there's so much symbology in that I could go in on another YouTube video about, with the 12 houses and the 12 tribes of Israel and all that. There's a lot of symbology with astrology, but we could save that for another video. So let's go into the eclipse axis here. So what you guys need to know is that when the eclipse is happening in Taurus, the celestial energy is entering Taurus because the north node, or Rahu, is in Taurus. So that's where energy is entering, and celestial energy is exiting through Scorpio, which is the natural 8th house. Eclipses always affect the opposite house and sign. Natural 8th house of Scorpio is being influenced. Guys, this is really important to think about. The 8th house is known as a Dashtana house. It's an evil house. It's not a fun house. I'm going to explain to you guys why 8th house causes a lot of accidents and problems in people's life for the purpose of enlightenment or moksha, but it's generally not seen as a pleasant experience, and I don't see it as a pleasant experience for the world either. So let's go to this next one and I'll show you guys. Scorpio is going to be what brings out the volatility, guys, because the eclipse is happening in Taurus, but it's also affecting the 8th house of Scorpio as well. Scorpio is the natural 8th house, okay? 8th house is known as an evil house in astrology. It causes events typically associated with misfortune, shocking events, trauma, with the purpose of moksha or enlightenment. Sudden upsets, revelations, downfalls can be expected when Scorpio is being affected. Think of the scorpion sting. And I believe, guys, Rahu and Ketu, they're both going to be leaving. Rahu's going to be leaving Taurus, and Ketu's going to be leaving Scorpio in April of 2022. And there will be a scorpion sting before Ketu leaves Scorpio. The world will be stung. There will be a very bad sting coming our way in the next 5 months. So I want you guys to not get too euphoric with what we're seeing in the markets, because there's going to be the sting, and that sting hurts, okay? But the sting is the truth. That's what I want you guys to know. The sting is the truth. And let's talk about Kritika. That leads us right into the fact that this eclipse is happening in the nakshatra of Kritika. Guys, Kritika nakshatra, if you guys seen my previous video, I talk about this, but let's get back into it. It represents the razor. It's ruled by the sun and this god named Agni. Remember, each nakshatra is ruled by a deity as well, and a planet. The sun wants the truth to be revealed. The Shakti, or the power of Kritika, is to burn away the negativity and get to the truth. Anti-dharmic actions motivated by greed and service to self get exposed here. Expect sudden revelations to arise, shocking but truthful. The truth is needed to heal. And this really what everything's happening. What this is all about right now, guys, is we have these two factions on Earth. All right? This is a battle between dark and light. We have one side that's service to self, and that's a lot of what's been ruling the world through corporate entities. It's kind of that Saturnian cult in a type of way. And this is a service to self type of entity. And the Earth is going through an ascension process. We're being led to this new age of Aquarius, which is service to others. And all the great avatars have taught service to others. This is nothing new. There's nothing new about the golden rule. There's nothing new about how serving others blesses yourself as well as it blesses others. And that's what the spirit and attitude we have to have now as we're going through this eclipse in this very volatile period, the next 6 months. This is the time to heed the call and make those life changes that you guys need to make to raise your vibration and get on the ascension timeline here. So this is why, in this last part of my presentation, I'm talking about how Kritika helps. How does it help us? The impurities in ourselves and our environment get exposed to light. Through this, we heal ourselves, even though it can be bitter medicine. The shadow self, we're dealing with our shadow selves. The best way to work with this energy is through sattvic activities, raising one's personal vibration through meditation and service to others, the way the light works miracles in our lives. And guys, I want to bring up the fact that, there's going to be a lot of volatility over the next few months. I see it all the way till April. I think there's going to be a big scorpion sting that's going to come. So this wild ride is not over. I've been talking to a few clients recently. I had a few clients talk to me, and apparently they have connections and insiders. And this is just opinions, by the way. But they said, watch the real estate markets. There's a lot of speculation out there that there's a big land grab about to happen. So be very careful about what's going on. A lot of these things, there's people higher levels that know these events and what's going to happen. The puppet masters. So we have to be careful about this, that we don't get caught in the undertow of those people that are service to self. We don't want to get caught in the undertow. We're on the ascension timeline. And you guys watching this, you guys are on the ascension timeline. But as we're going through this change, this process of this bifurcation point that we're all going through, we're still going to watch the service to self entities and factions still, trying to keep their game going. And this is going to be in the past very soon here. But the process is going to take us many years of healing to really overcome what's been happening. Now, let me go to the chat really quick, and thank you guys for that have participated in the live stream. Somebody made the comment, China is richer than the United States now. That's what I've been hearing in the headlines, that China, it looks like it's overtaking the US. And that's why when I'm talking about Rahu transiting Kritika, that's why, I said that it's possible that we might hear the drums of war. And there's been speculation that there could be war happening in the South China Sea and places like that. There's a lot of tensions right now. And you guys always recognize that whenever resources are involved, countries will fight over resources and control and power. That's just human nature. That's that human, unfortunate reptilian nature that humans have, the war over commodities and resources. Somebody's also asking, can we do SHIB chart in the future video? And I think I was with the SHIB. I think I didn't find a birth time on that cryptocurrency, but I could definitely take a look if someone wants to send me a birth time. The readings and the charts I do on the cryptocurrencies are only as good as the birth time that I'm given. So that's why I talk about in my videos, that it's a new science using astrology to analyze these cryptocurrencies, is because it's new and evolving and we're seeing what we can get out of it. You guys, thank you so much for visiting. I think I'm going to be reading some charts in the near-term future. By next week, I'm hoping to do a President Biden update and see where that's going, because we're seeing a lot of changes happening within President Biden's administration. We're going to see what kind of planetary forces are working on President Biden, and if some of the speculation and rumors could be true, So we're going to check that out next week. Many blessings to you guys. Stay safe during this eclipse. I do expect, a lot of volatility over the next few months, so make very conservative and cautious decisions. Thank you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one.